guys. Today we are going to talk about intrinsic versus extrinsic rewards. And the reason we are going to talk about those is because by utilizing intrinsic and extrinsic rewards, we can increase motivation and engagement with our learning, okay? So first of all, let's be clear. We all know that motivation and engagement is really the secret sauce to making an impact in our learning and our training programs, okay? We need people to be self-motivated in order to not only do the learning, but also change their behavior as a consequence of doing the learning, okay? So this idea of having motivation and reward is kind of critical to getting knowledge moved over into behavior. So there's a number of different ways to create motivation, and often in L&D departments we hear a lot about, are you going to use the carrot or are you going to use the stick, okay? And intrinsic and extrinsic motivation can be used to basically have more of the carrot element, okay? So typically, going back to the days of Dale Carnegie, right? We all know that people are not influenced to do something if they don't want to do it, okay? So we need to make our training programs be something that people want to do, okay? And in order to do that, we can use intrinsic and extrinsic motivators in order to give that sense of delight and excitement in our training programs and online on our LMSs, okay? So kind of interesting, you know, Small Business Chronicle notes that 78% of employees saying that being rewarded, whether intrinsically or extrinsically, makes them feel more productive, okay? So the focus of this little talk is really to really be clear what's the best way to use motivation, intrinsic or extrinsic, in order to get that all-important behavior change. So first of all, let's talk about intrinsic rewards, okay? These are something by their nature that are non-physical, okay? It's not a gift. It's not an Amazon voucher. This is something that we feel inside ourselves when we are rewarded for doing something, okay? So they're usually linked to a sense of recognition, a sense of achievement, a sense of satisfaction in terms of doing something well, okay? And they are incredibly powerful. You know, just take a pause, think about a moment in the last week or last month where you've had an immense sense of recognition, an immense sense of pride over doing a job well. Think about the force of that emotion in your body right now. So when we are delivering those kind of motivations, intrinsic motivations, they are incredibly positive for the individual, okay? So an example of an intrinsic reward would be satisfaction about completing a book. The pride we take in doing a job well and knowing that it is recognized by our manager or by our client. And then also a sense of mastery, a sense of knowing something and knowing something really, really well, to be confident enough to share it with other people. Yeah? These are all ideas of intrinsic motivation. Now let's look at extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is something that is done to us, if you like. So it's like, right, I'm going to reward you with an Amazon voucher. I'm going to reward you with a gift. I'm going to reward you with a tangible something that basically shows that, you know, you have done a piece of learning, okay? So think a little bit about how that feels when you're given a gift for something versus a sense of pride you might have for finishing off a book. And you now start to kind of get in your heart and in your head an idea of how very different intrinsic and extrinsic emotions feel to the individual, okay? So extrinsic rewards are things like, you know, getting paid a salary. And, you know, if you look at Hertzberg, two-factor theory, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, very quickly, extrinsic rewards are taken as what is called a hygiene factor. So people they just expect them, okay? It doesn't, with giving extrinsic rewards, you don't necessarily get that feeling of pride, that feeling of self-worth, that feeling of doing something really well. Not to say they don't have their place, But it's just important to understand the differences and how they influence motivation in the long term. So being given a certificate might be one, being given a promotion, a good example of extrinsic rewards. The feeling lasts a relatively short time. So what is better? Both clearly have their places, okay? And it's up to you as the training manager, head of L&D, head of learning technologies, whatever it might be, to decide how you're going to use intrinsic and extrinsic emotional motivation factors, yeah? On the one side, there is the cost of the opportunity itself. How much of our time is it taking up? Is our energy best spent elsewhere? On the other hand is the side of utility and the value of the expected reward. So both of those come into play when we're thinking about how we're going to motivate and reward our learners. One of the things I wanted to share with you is going back to the Herzberg two-factor theory, is that intrinsic rewards over time have been proven to be a stronger motivational factor than extrinsic rewards. So if, as an organisation, we constantly reward people for learning how to do their job better by Amazon vouchers, essentially what we are doing is we are reducing the attractiveness overall of that. Whereas if we were celebrating success, whether we were giving people a sense of pride, which is more difficult to do because you need to have line managers, you need to have certain things in place, the bottom line is that you are slightly dumbing down the power of that learning, because if you consistently give extrinsic rewards, it becomes an expectation. So when it doesn't happen, it therefore doesn't feel that good in the mind of the learners. And there's a fantastic piece of research where basically there were two groups involved in an experiment. One group, Group A, played the game and they were paid every time they played the game, okay? The other group, B, they played the same game without any monetary reward. And ultimately, after game A stopped being rewarded, they stopped playing the game. And what this tells us is that if we make a direct correlation between learning and getting paid for it, ultimately, over time, that will dumb down the reward of actually learning itself. So we are born curious and people love learning. And what we should be doing, in our humble opinion, of growth engineering, is trying to focus on creating intrinsic triggers and reward and motivational factors for our learners so that they become passionate advocates, not only for the training itself, but also for the learning environment that they live in. So what we're not saying is don't use extrinsic rewards, but what we are saying is make sure that there is a bigger focus put on the actual celebration of learning itself and creating a learning community that people are passionate advocates for, okay? So what this really means in terms of your learning program is that you really need to think about how you are going to reward and celebrate success outside any monetary budget you might be able to attach to this program. How are you going to celebrate the successes of those people that have really invested to deliver you back, you know, how they're going to change their behavior in terms of information security, how they're going to change their behavior in terms of, you know, selling more product, how they're going to change their behavior in terms of health and safety. These are the things that we need to think about before we use either the stick or monetary carrots. So that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Hi guys, my name's Juliette Denny and I'm from a company called Growth Engineering. I hope that you enjoy these videos. I hope you give it a big thumbs up. I also hope that you comment and you give us some questions, because otherwise how am I going to know what you want to learn about in future? So I want your comments and I want your feedback. And then most importantly, it would be really great if you could subscribe to the channel. And then when I'm delivering out new content and hopefully I'm answering questions that you guys have asked me, you'll know when I post another video. So thank you very much. And thank you for being part of my learning tribe.